Sea lions are the most common mammals in the Galapagos Islands. The floating islands that brought the reptiles hardly transported any mammals. There was no water available, so the 2 weeks that it would take for a raft to drift from the continent to these islands was too long for most mammals to survive. But the sea lions did not come in rafts. They swam. More than 50,000 sea lions live in the archipelago area and live mainly on fish, an almost insignificant effort for the rich waters that prosper from the coming together of different currents. There are two species in the Galapagos. One, the fur seal, came with the cold waters of the south, the same waters that brought the penguin. It is the smaller of the two and is related to the fur seals that still inhabit the waters and coasts of Argentina and Chile. But its close relative, the Galapagos sea lion, is more numerous. The first members of this species must have come from the northern hemisphere, from the coastal waters of California. And in keeping with their origins, it is not uncommon to find them enjoying a day's surfing. Sea iguanas depend on the sea for survival, just like the sea lions. First thing in the morning, they gather in large groups near the water, letting the sun warm their bodies and activate their ecothermic metabolism. When their temperature has risen sufficiently, the sea iguanas go to the breaker areas or the intertidal area in search of the algae on which they feed. These are the only iguanas in the world that go into the sea. Their life depends entirely on the supply of algae that the ocean offers them, so they have become excellent swimmers. The sea iguanas feed on the algae on the shores while they can. But if these start to run out, they enter the water and dive down to the bottom of the sea, propelled by the powerful muscles in their flat tails. But this is only the beginning of their amazing adaptive achievements. A metabolism that is capable of working without renewing the oxygen supply and the ability to reduce their heart rate at will allow these sea iguanas to immerse themselves at depths of up to 12 meters for at least an hour. On many occasions, the most succulent, leafy algae are to be found in the breaker area. This is a considerable obstacle for young iguanas, but adult iguanas in the prime of life have no great trouble in reaching them. Sharp claws capable of withstanding the beating of the waves manage to keep them between the breakers and let them reach the algae successfully. From time to time, in cycles that are becoming even shorter and more unpredictable, the trade winds from the southeast stop blowing. Without the break of the Peru current pushed by the trade winds, hot water advances towards the archipelago and causes a tragedy with effects that go beyond the ocean limits. The rise in the water temperature causes an impoverishment of the marine ecosystem because the nutrients that arrived with the cold waters from the south disappear. The fish leave, and as a result of all this, death and starvation reign over all the Galapagos. El Niño, as this phenomenon is known, damages the coasts of the archipelago to such an extent that it would seem impossible for them to recover. But if the Galapagos have shown us something, it is that their power to shelter life has no bounds. With the return of the cold waters rich in nutrients, the zoological communities are reborn and their previous population levels gradually return. It is as if the islands wanted to resume and remember their biological capacity, the same capacity that transformed these barren islets into the epitome of biological evolution that they have become, but in a timescale that is 5 million times faster. The El Niño phenomenon is not as damaging for all species. If truth be told, once it has passed, it leaves some positive results behind that should be set against the negative effects in an overall balance. After all, we are talking about a phenomenon which is as old as the islands themselves. While El Niño sows death along the coasts, it causes torrential downpours inland. Fresh water is a necessity in very short supply in the islands, so the rains have a positive effect in the long term. The vegetation grows spectacularly, the number of insects increases, and birds reproduce in an exceptional way. Just as the years of drought created terrible pressure on the natural selection of living creatures inland, the El Niño years do so on the coastal species. In this way, the Galapagos have set the patterns for the evolutionary formation of species for the 5 million years that they have existed, and they are still doing it. The islands are isolated from each other and from the continent, and this has turned Galapagos into a natural laboratory that is unique in the world. The species that flew here were transported by animals or floated on the sea, became isolated by the stretches of water that separate the islands, and thousands of years of evolution adapting to different environments transformed them, so they diversified and created different adaptive models. In no other place in the world can this be seen with such clarity, and it only needed the arrival of a man of open mind like Darwin for the theory of evolution to arise here. A theory which would transform the very pillars on which science was built. And the process is still going on. A strange paradox if we bear in mind that Darwin originally intended to confirm with his voyage the fixed truth of the book of Genesis from the Bible. In the different islands of the archipelago, it is not uncommon to find new experiments in this monumental laboratory. This is a hybrid iguana. Its father is a sea iguana and its mother is a land iguana. There are only two in the whole world. Perhaps the prototype may work because its range of foodstuffs is wider than that of each of its parents, and its hybrid physiology means it can operate both on land and in the sea. But, as with so many other hybrids, this experiment is sterile. To reach new species, a gradual evolution over thousands of years is necessary, in which the environment shapes the physiological changes out of pure natural pressure. The Galapagos cormorant is a good example.